Hey, big head.
Um, then at some point you moved to East Palo Alto.
I moved to East Palo Alto, yes. First, we moved from Los Angeles to San Jose for a couple of years. That's where I went to middle school. Because my mother had decided that she was not going to send me to a special school. They tested me in the 4th or 5th grade and said, yeah, she needs to go to this school for the gifted in Arizona. And my mother had already been skipped 3 years. She graduated high school at 15. And
wow,
she was in junior college at 16. Which to my logic is why she had me at 17.
She was already grown, in the educational years. She was already grown,
Yeah, she was acting grown. How I came to be. But she knew what it was like to be mentally at that level, but not socially. And so when they were suggesting that I literally be sent to a school for gifted and talented, she said, nope, she's just gonna have to make it work. And so I went to San Jose for a couple of years. And then for 8th grade is when we moved to East Palo Alto.
Oh, 8th grade. Okay. And so the move was for what exactly? Was it a better job opportunity for your mother? Was it just more family that way? What would you say?
No, there was no family.
Okay.
It was a job opportunity at the high school that I would eventually go to. I cannot tell you how hard it is to cut a class when your mother works in the attendance office.
I can only imagine. I can't tell.
You gotta have skills.
So the high school that you're referring to in EPA was Ravenswood. Is that the high school?
It was Ravenswood, yeah.
Awesome. Go Trojans.
Yeah, I went to Ravenswood for my junior and for my senior year. But I started off going to, now that was busing in the early 70s. And so even though I was at the neighborhood middle school, junior high school, as we called it then, when we were in the 8th grade, we were given the decision, which one of these white schools do you want to go to when you start high school? And everybody had to pick a school. And so I picked one of the hill schools. I went to San Carlos for my freshman and sophomore year. Didn't come back to Ravenswood till the latter part of high school. But that's where I graduated from.
Okay. And then you said this is around the early mid 70s?
Yeah, this was 72, 3, 4, and 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
And at that time, because it was busing, nobody wanted us in the schools that we went to. The bathrooms became battlegrounds and the classrooms became battlegrounds. And I particularly was in a fight because I was smarter than everybody else in class. And white people weren't ready for smart Black people.
Right.
Some white people were particularly not ready for smart Black people who weren't afraid of them. And so there was a lot of conflict about constantly having to prove where I was and prove that not only could I do the work, I can do the work with one hand tied behind my back.
Right.
And so
better than you, and I can do your work after I get done with mine.
You don't want this. But the politics of the time were also intense because that was the time of the George Jackson killing in San Quentin. And that was the time of the hunt for Angela Davis. That was the time of the Attica uprising. And BSUs in the 70s were our lifeline. BSU conferences were kind of like mini school days. It was like you just came together to get politically active. That was the time of Patty Hearst. and the Symbionese Liberation Army, and the country was consumed with trying to figure out where this newspaper man's daughter was.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody in San Francisco told the FBI, so I have an FBI file now. Somebody in San Francisco told the FBI that I knew where Bill and Emily Harris were. Bill and Emily Harris had sheltered Patty Hearst at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a manhunt for everybody. And they called my school to talk to me in my junior year because they wanted to interview me about a tip that they had gotten,
Mm-hmm.
that I had information about where this fugitive was. And I remember saying, I'm in the 11th grade, sir. I don't remember much about that interview, but I do remember saying, I'm in the 11th grade, sir. I don't know Bill and Emily Harris.
Right.
I ain't got nothing to do with Patty Hearst. You know, that Disney happened somewhere across the country. Figure it out. And so the 70s, that mid 70s was such a time of intense change. You've got politics, you've got the decline of Motown and the rise of both disco and funk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember everybody was scandalized and clutching imaginary pearls because the Isley Brothers had come out with the record Fight the Power.
Mm-hmm.
And AM radio, which was what the dominant radio was, AM radio actually played the version where Ronald Isley says, you know, of all this bullshit going down. And people were like, they said bullshit on it. And folks were traumatized.